Hi, guys. Welcome back to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. So, I love today's episode. Let me just stop and tell you that it's a little bit different than what we normally have, but I really wanted to do this episode. So, when my daughter was younger, it was a constant struggle to find good TV shows that she could watch that didn't have violence or cursing or show mean behavior. It was even harder to find stuff where I could feel comfortable leaving her alone in the room as she got a little bit older, knowing she wasn't going to switch over to something I didn't want her to see. So, in honor of the Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards that are happening live tonight, today we welcome a TV trailblazer in the world of children's programming, Dean Koocher. Dean started working in TV in some famous shows like Lazy Town, Teletubbies, The Wiggles. You guys remember those. Now he's the co-founder of Kidstream, which is basically Netflix for kids television. I had not heard of it. If I had a younger child from, very, very young to age like 9, this is like the perfect thing that you should have on your TV that you should be watching. It's filled with programs specifically curated for them. I got to chat with him about how he got into TV, his work on these classic shows. He even lets us in on some behind the scenes stuff that happened during the whole Jerry Falwell Teletubby controversy. If you guys don't remember that, Jerry Falwell, he was accused he accused the Teletubbies of being gay because one of them carried a purse, which only made it an even bigger pop culture phenomenon than it already was. I mean, who can forget that Rolling Stone cover with Britney Spears holding a Teletubby? It was basically iconic. So if you're a parent, a babysitter, a teacher, or even if you just have kids in your life, you're going to want to listen to what Dean shares with us about the future of children's television, how streaming services play a big part in our kids' lives, even in ways we don't think about, like what algorithm they follow to push certain programs over others and what criteria he uses when choosing quality programming to broadcast. Dean and Kidstream's mission is to create a safer place for kids to learn and be entertained. So I hope you'll give a listen as we welcome this TV pioneer. Dean, thank you so much for joining me today on Misunderstood.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Great to be here on Misunderstood. Really excited to be here.
Good, thank you. So let's get right into who you are and your background so that people can really, who are listening, really understand why we're talking to you, because you are so interesting. And I think, the topic of children's programming, may not come up in daily conversation, but I think it actually is in all parents' minds, right? So how did you get into TV and programming in your past?
Well, I kind of fell into the business in the 90s. I was out in Louisville, Kentucky. I was working at Pepsi KFC headquarters, believe it or not, and a friend of mine who was managing a children's TV brand called Thomas the Tank Engine. Mm-hmm. He was very successful. He was building all the toy brands, named Ken Weisselman. He asked me to help him with a business plan to start a new entertainment company for kids. And I just got into it. And next thing I know, I was living in New York and we were raising money. And that was in about 95. And the first client we hired or we signed on with was a company called Rag Doll and a creator named Ann Wood, amazing person. And she created about 2 years later, after we started working with her, the Teletubbies, which mm-hmm. just vaulted us into the stratosphere of, common TV. Everybody knew us. It was crazy. And mm-hmm. It was a good way to learn the business. And then I kind of, we did a few other things. We worked with Eloise at the Plaza. I don't know if you remember that book. We acquired the rights to that at the time. And we did a lot of fun things. And then after that, I ended up leaving and going to another company, working for another creator, a guy named Magnus Skeving, who created a show called Lazy Town. I helped him launch that and manage that. So I was in that business, mm-hmm. kind of fell into it. And then this opportunity later on arose to start my own kids channel, basically, is what mm-hmm. we have at Kidstream. We have a small but really high-end, really quality place for people to find really good entertainment for their kids.
Yeah, so I want to get into that and talk about it. But before we move to that, like I'm curious, when you were younger, what shows did you watch?
Great question.
Mhm.
It's funny. I was just one of the shows that just came to my mind just before you get on the phone. I was listening to a song, The Monkees. I loved The Monkees. It was, I was I was a kid in the '60s, so
Yeah.
that was one I really liked. I loved the Jetsons. No, it's a
Uh-huh.
great
I
question. I
remember.
remember the Jetsons, some of the older ones that I liked. Of course I knew Sesame Street, and I knew Mr. Rogers. I was from
Mhm.
Boston. So there was a show called Zoom up there. I remember on the PBS station. I really liked too. It's a
Right.
local
Um,
show.
yeah, it's funny. I forgot about the Jetsons until right now. And I think that I grew up on Bugs Bunny and
Oh
the
yeah.
Roadrunner or whatever. And I think if you had that on now, people might say that that's abusive. You know what
You
I
know,
mean? All
I
the hitting on the head
the
and
Roadrunner. I know, always getting blown up. Yeah,
yeah.
you're right. You're right. I think that humor might be mistaken today, even though I know it was very innocent back
Of
then.
course, of
Yeah.
course. But like today, everybody sort of gets up in arms in a lot of different ways very quickly. Let's talk about the Teletubbies for 1 second,
Oh
because there
yeah.
might not be a lot of people who are familiar with it. And then, of course, there are people who know all about it. So can you explain in your own words what that is and what that phenomenon was?
Yeah, I will. And if this creator, Ann Wood, at the time she was a 60-year-old ex-school teacher who had been creating television shows over there in the UK, and she was really into watching and understanding young children. So when
Mhm.
she created the Teletubbies, she wanted something that worked on their level, not on the parents' level, not on older kids' level. So she has built a show with a lot of repetition
Mhm.
that young kids really learned by. I don't know if you remember, there was this little horn that came up and made sounds because she noticed in that time in the '90s that little kids were hearing, speakerphones and things, and they didn't know what
Uh-huh.
they were. So it was a really cool show. Of course, it's live. I don't know if your audience knows, but they're costume characters, and it was shot in a real life place. So there was a set in outside of Stratford, England, that was amazing. A real, built into a hill, and they actually had real rabbits walking on the hill. So that it was just really, people really kind of got taken by it. In fact, it was
Mhm.
such into pop culture. I can remember being in LA and having the creators of South Park come up to us in the restaurant and tell us how much they liked it, and they were, of course, really big at the time too. They had just
Right.
come out, and we even had, I don't know if you remember, Britney Spears showed up on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine with a Teletubby in her hand. So we just had
Oh,
all this press. People just, they either didn't understand it, or there were some questions about it. I think people weren't sure what it was, but it was a really great show, founded really on real core principles of helping the youngest viewers really grow from television. So.
yeah, and you're right. It became a topic of pop culture. There was a Tinky Winky controversy where people thought this one character was gay because he carried a bag that looked like a person. Even Jerry Falwell said he was a gay role model. What do you remember that? What were your thoughts on
Oh,
that?
I remember it really well. We in our offices one day, we suddenly had this press conference, and these very aggressive people came in, and started, really putting us through the ringer about that. And we, at the time in the '90s, that was a real controversy. And but I can tell you from the creative standpoint, one, the creator is certainly very friendly, gay friendly, or friendly to all people. But
Mhm.
she actually, when she created that show, she intentionally had the boy character carrying the pocketbook because she wanted to break down stereotypes. That
Oh, so it was intentional.
it was intentional to have a pocketbook, but it wasn't intentional to add a sexuality to it at all. It was
Right.
just that, boys can play with things and girls can play. There was a boy that had a skirt. Sometimes he had a little, skirt that he would put on.
Mm.
And they would do different things. Girl would play with the ball. It was trying to break down stereotypes really for young kids. So that's why
Yeah.
I think she did it. But you're right, it was a huge controversy, which just added fuel to the fire, and we were all over the press, and everything. We even had a controversy. I don't know if you remember being in New York, that one of the toys, the New York Post came out with a story that said, "Got a gun." And one of our toys, if you press the button and you listened a certain way, it sounded like to some people that it says, "I got a gun." And it didn't say that, but it was, so it was just wild, the
Right.
controversy that we had. Yeah.
Right. What's in for 2024? Pickleball, eating healthier, and reading more. What's out? Lazy people, wasting money, and body odor. I think that's something we can all agree on. With LUME whole body deodorant, you get 72 hours of odor control everywhere from your pits to your feet, even your privates. And it's pH balanced and safe to use anywhere on your body. LUME was created 6 years ago by an OBGYN who was originally inspired by the concerns of her patients. And now this game-changing whole body deodorant is a savior to those looking to smell great and feel confident all day long. You can choose from a variety of scents like clean tangerine, lavender sage, or toasted coconut. And check out their reviews. I always do before I try a new product. And LUME has over 300,000 5-star reviews. Do you know how hard that is to get? You can't go wrong with that. And I'm so happy to tell you about this special offer. New customers get $5 off LUME's starter pack with code UNDERSTOOD at lumedeodorant.com. So I received my package of LUME products, and I will tell you, my daughter stole all of them from my bathroom. They smell great. And smell is a big deal to me if you're going to be putting things on your body. So I can really tell you that they are doing well in my house. And my daughter is loving them and has asked me to order more. LUME's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a LUME starter pack with code UNDERSTOOD at lumedeodorant.com. That's LUME deodorant.com. That equates to over 40% of your starter pack when you visit lumedeodorant.com and use code UNDERSTOOD. So how do you think kids programming has changed from the beginning when you started to now?
Well, there's some great producers out there all over the world. One thing that I really appreciated is you can find great producers in New Zealand and France and Canada, all over, in addition to the U.S. So that has kind of continued to expand. I worked on a show with a creator from Iceland, this one, Lazy Town. But I'll tell you what, in a way that I would kind of make it, I don't want to alarm anybody, but right now there's so many people creating television that it's not all qualified television. YouTube is content generated. Users can put things up on YouTube. So they don't, I think there is a risk out there that anybody can create kids TV, and not all kids TV is the same.
Right.
There are some really great shows out there, and people that work really hard, and writers and educators that get behind shows. But sometimes shows can be out there to just try to make money and try to make clicks, and that's where I think parents today have to be more careful,
right,
than they have had before.
Well, agreed. And we're going to get to Kidstream right now, but it seems like you guys have really cherry picked what you thought were some shows that had some core values and obviously passed the test. But I just wanted to mention, my daughter's 11. When she was born, I had never seen this channel before I had a kid, obviously, but there was something called Baby First. Are you familiar with Baby First?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a constant, repetition of the same type of shows. That the reason why I'm bringing it up, it catered to the child. I mean, obviously, I looked at it and I was like, what is this? This looks low budget, like junk.
Yeah.
But she was, as a baby, she was focused on this. And it's funny because when she turned 1.5, 2, 3, out of nowhere, she started singing the song. So it really resonated with her as a baby, and she learned these things. And the shows, I guess, were about sharing and friendships. And, I don't really remember because it was hard for me to watch as an adult, but that kind of stuff obviously really made an imprint on a baby's brain. And I just felt, I thought that was very, very interesting. I still see Baby First on TV. What are your thoughts on it?
I don't know the channel very well,
Mm,
but I do know that they're focusing on, programming for really young children should
mm,
be different than programming that's and being a little slow paced is a really good thing. So I think
mm.
they do carry that. We're bringing a new show out of Holland next month called Tic Tac, not to be confused with TikTok. Tic
Mhm.
Tac. It's a classic, very visual show like that with images and very slow and gentle show for really the youngest viewers as well. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, and there are values in these shows. You're right. They learn sharing. They learn things at a really young age.
Right. And the concept of being kind. And I definitely, that resonated with me, even just watching it in passing. So let's get into your idea of Kidstream and how that started.
Yeah, so that started after I was in Lazy Town, I met a guy named Jordan Jadenkin, who's the co-founder with me, and we were working at Lazy Town. He had been brought in to do a lot of the promotion, retail, and licensing deals. And we were traveling we just really wanted to start a company together. We felt like we were a good synergy. He's a little younger than I am. In fact, his kids are now 4 and 6. Um, and we just had different skills. So when Lazy Town was ultimately sold, we helped sell it to Turner. We just started our own company, and then a few years in, we had an opportunity from one of the big cable companies to create them a streaming channel, and we just
Mhm.
jumped on it. And just it really wasn't in our, but streaming was just starting to come around, and subscription channels were big, just starting to come. This was like 2016, so we just bootstrapped it and pulled a channel together and had it up on Comcast was our first place that we aired it. It was in January of 2017. We just kind of really the wild west of streaming. And
Mhm.
now there's a lot more competition, I would say, out there. There's a lot of people that are in the streaming business.
Right. Right. So, for people that are listening that are not familiar, Kidstream is basically a Netflix dedicated just to kids, correct?
It is, and that's a good example because we are non-advertising like Netflix, or I know
Mhm.
Netflix is maybe moving towards advertising. We're subscription based, and you can watch us unlimited amounts of time whenever you want. And so in that respect, it is like Netflix. You can get it in a number of different places. You can get it from your smart TV. We're sold directly or on apps. We can get it through Amazon as a subscription premium channel. You can add on to Amazon. So you can get it all different places. So in that respect, it is. It costs $4.99 a month. But for
Mhm.
that, you get unlimited viewing. We have you know, we're adding new series about 2 or 3 every month.
Mhm.
We have about 70 series right now, lots of episodes, really nice stuff, really high quality. Our focus is more quality over quantity too. I turned down, 10 out of more than a large percentage. I'm very selective on what we
Yeah,
work with.
I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, what's the mission statement for this network, so to speak? But also, what are the criteria that it takes for you to pick a show on there?
Great question, Rachel. We have 5 major things. Safe is probably the biggest thing. We want to be
Mhm.
safe. We want you to feel safe there. We don't have any violence on the show. We don't even have any mean-spirited humor, which is very prevalent in older, kids stuff.
Yeah.
We want stuff to be enriching. So we have things that, have a lot of different things that you'll learn from them. I mean, great role models, but also we have uh, really fun shows that talk about, or in the background, science, technology, art, dance, crafting, fitness, even, and healthy eating.
Mhm.
And so we have a lot of shows that have this kind of built in, a lot of wildlife, nature, and things like that. So they're really, you get something out of these shows, but mostly, oh, and also diverse characters and diverse formats. So we look for all sorts of characters. We pull in shows from all around the world, and we also look at different formats. We have puppets, we have live action, we have stop motion.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, a lot of really good high quality animation. And high production values. We're looking at really good shows. We don't want we want there are so many really good creators that put a lot of time and money into their shows, and we really value the value of those high quality productions. And finally, it has to be entertaining. You can't fool a kid. They are really smart. I was just in a second grade, talking to a second grade class recently, and it blows me away how smart these 7, 8-year-olds are.
Yeah.
But so you can't trick them. It has to be entertaining first. So a show has to be entertaining, and then good creators know how to build in the background all these great things you can learn at a young age.
What's the sweet spot for the age that you're targeting here?
We only try to target from 2 to 9 years old. We feel like we have a nice range in there. As you know, after they get 9 or 10 or 11, they're graduating into other programming. Really, it's hard to keep. Even though some kids, 11 or 12, love some of the shows we have, we focus for 2 to 9. And I would say that even the shows that we have that I would say are for the older age in that group, we feel like a 2 or 3-year-old wouldn't ever be offended. You would never worry to have your 2 or 3 or 4-year-old in front of any of our shows.
Right.
So that's kind of a barometer. We wouldn't want a show that we felt was too scary or something if a 3 or 4-year-old turned to it.
I'm curious how it works when you get these deals. Are these shows now exclusive just to your streaming service, or can you get them elsewhere?
Good question. Really good question. I'd say about half of them, we are the only person in the US to have, but many of them, the other half, we're happy to share. We even share some with Disney or PBS, a few, but we have some classics that are other places. Like, we really like the classics. Like, we have some old but great Thomas the Tank Engine, the original Thomas the Tank Engine. I think we're the only ones, though, in the US that have the original with Ringo Starr, who was the narrator for the first couple of seasons. And we have George Carlin, who became the narrator after that. We have both. But most people here in the States don't have Ringo. And we have Barney, for example, Madeline, some of these real old classic ones that are on other places. You can find them. So we do share some, but we really don't look, when I that's one of the things I do at the company, and I really love this part, is finding the shows. If someone comes to me and says, "Hey, this is great, it's everywhere. You want this show because it's here and there and there and there," that doesn't attract
That
me.
doesn't appeal to you. Yeah.
No, we like a special environment here. We're not.
So you basically are looking for some shows that we may have heard of, but you're looking to find new shows to give a chance to that fall under your criteria of the 5 values.
Exactly. We love to bring these great new shows. I mean, if you could let me, I could tell you about many of them that we are the only ones that have.
Well, yeah, tell me about some of your favorites that people should check out.
Oh gosh, okay. And I know we don't have that much time, but I'll tell you this one interesting one we just brought in that no one else has that might be interesting. It's called Gudrun, the Viking Princess. Okay. It's shot live action. So I know there's a lot of people that have, adults that have watched Game of Thrones and all these other Viking shows. So this is very safe young show. Gudrun is a Viking princess. Her father is the king of the Vikings. And in each episode, she's out it's all shot in the wild too. It's not, in a studio. And each episode focuses on an animal. It could be the seal or the wolf or the eagle or the raven. It's really, narrated in such a way that it's really a captivating show. So that's an example of one that we have.
Well, wait, I have a question about that, because I know it's like on Netflix, where sometimes I'll be scrolling and all of a sudden I'll see these shows from Germany or Holland or wherever, and I try them out and they're actually really good. So how are they making these shows? Are they making it for intent to go somewhere else and you end up finding it and think it's great? Because you don't really have exclusive. It's not made for Netflix.
No, yeah, we didn't commission those. Yeah, we didn't commission those shows. We're starting to dabble in that, but no, we didn't commission that one. It's funny. Kids around the world tend to like the same things. So you can, a child in Germany or a child in Australia or a child in Canada may have the same exact taste at a young age. They really haven't. So we find that first kids entertainment really travels around the world really well. And if it's animated, you can dub it, very easily.
Yeah.
Live action and I think the stuff you're talking about, Netflix is doing a great job starting to bring some live action dubbed shows, but this was shot in English, shot in the north of England, so it really has a Viking kind of feel to it. But this one, was big on the BBC in the UK, so it was actually they were the commissioning broadcaster, the BBC.
Mm-hmm.
Has a great history of really good kids television. In fact, they were the ones who commissioned the Teletubbies originally, was the BBC.
Okay.
So we look at that quite a bit. When I'm picking out a show, I look at the commissioning broadcaster and the people that made that show, the producers, the animators, and I really value that a lot when I pick a show, because I know the quality of the different companies. I'll give you an example. We work a lot with Jim Henson, who's
Okay.
from the US, of course, and we have some of his or their newer shows. There's one called Dot, a little girl that's very tech savvy. There's one called Sid the Science Kid that a lot of people know. And we also have some of the more classics. One we have that's actually from the 70s that was it's a special, kind of like a mini movie called Emmett Otter and the Jug Band Christmas that used to be on HBO. And it's a beautiful movie that a lot of grandparents love because they grew up with it. So that's a popular one. And so we have a lot of different Jim Henson ones. We have one called Billy Bunny, who was actually the first one that Kermit the Frog appeared on too. So we have stuff like that. Other ones that were the only person with just to give you a few. We have a really cool one we developed with a guy named Coyote Peterson. Coyote Peterson's a wildlife expert who has his own show on the Animal Planet, but he gave us a collection that's curated just for us of his animal adventures that are really geared for younger kids. So, and we curated them with him, and it's called Coyote Peterson's Kidstream Collection. So we're the only one that has that here in the States. And there's several, many others that we're the only ones that are running right now. I just want to give you a couple more examples of fun ones. Sure. We have one called Circle Square right now that came out of the UK. It's for older kids, animated. Won a big animation award as the best new animated show out of the UK this year. That we have a really cool show named Alison, which is a little girl that solves mysteries out of Canada. That's really special. We have a new one called Louis. It's out of France. There's a little white rabbit named Louis, and he has a little friend named Yoko, and very young, and they build stuff. So it's all kind of teaching kids a little bit around building. So it's really sweet, little things.
Every
like
single
that.
one of these sounds so interesting. The world of streaming seems like it's pretty crowded. So what would you say sets you guys apart from something like a Disney Plus?
Good question. Well, we're very focused at this age group. Disney's got some great shows. Really, we love Disney, but they're focused, as you know, for all ages. They've got a lot of stuff that you wouldn't want your young child in front of. It could be, some scarier stuff, and they're very limited to what to their stuff. They have all the Marvel, of course, all the Marvel movies, which are great for people. So we feel like we're much more focused on that younger audience, parents and caregivers that really want something enriching, high quality, no advertising, safe. So we feel like there's a really good market for that, especially when parents see some of these things, because you'll see all sorts of things that no one else has, and it's all in a safe place for them.
Right.
And
Now that, go ahead.
no, but I was just gonna say, certainly Disney has some excellent shows as well.
Yeah. Now that the strike has ended, what are your thoughts on how business might change? I mean, I know a lot of these networks are excited to get back to some original programming. Are you guys gonna, is that where you see the trajectory of where you guys are gonna go?
We are starting just dabbling. We're pretty small still. We don't have the big budgets that some of these streamers, bigger networks have.
Mhm.
But we are starting to look at originals, or commissioning, right? Commissioning them, getting
Mhm.
involved in the front end. There's one out of France we're looking at right now that is a really unique. It's a book series that a French producer we work with a lot named Dandaloo is producing. We're a little ahead of the game telling you this, but we're hopefully going to announce in February that we're going to be involved with that production. And what's cool about that show is it teaches kids about their own emotions. This book, the woman who created the book series, has a big book series, and these little unicorn, who's the main character, changes the color of their mane depending on what emotion they're feeling.
Mm.
And so this little series is not going to be out till the end of 2025. You know how it is. Series take forever to produce.
Yeah.
But it will really be important for kids, because for kids to understand their emotions is the first step in dealing with these emotions. And then the creator also has a lot of ways to deal with those emotions, whether to be positive and visualize positive things, or breathe and different things like that. So it's really it's a young show, but we thought it was such an important thing to have for kids that we wanted to get involved with that from the front end.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question about your streaming service. So is it just like 30-minute series, or do you have movies too? Because something like that reminds me of Inside Out. You remember that movie?
Oh, yeah.
About the feelings, and that, like, I don't know if that's for that age group, but do you do movies?
We have some movies. In fact, one of the movies that we have that we're so proud of is we have the Madeline movie that has Christopher Plummer as the narrator. I mean, just
Oh, wow.
amazing. One of the classic old ones. But we're less about movies. We're starting to build those up. I think our movies are more like hour-long specials. The Wiggles just gave us some of their they have a brand new one called the Wiggles Great Fruit Salad Show that they just licensed to us, brand new. So we like specials, but a lot of our stuff is smaller episodes. So
Right.
if you get one of our series, like Goodman, there might be 20 of those, and they're 5 minutes each, or 26 5 minutes each, or something.
It's better for the attention span, probably, of the
You're
child
right.
age.
You're right. 11 minutes is a popular format for 5, 6-year-old, 7-year-olds. They like 11 minutes is something that a lot of people produce right now.
Well, if you get into the movie thing more, I have a suggestion. My favorite movie growing up with it was The Secret of Nim. Do you remember that?
Tell me more about Secret of.
It's so good, and I always talk about it. No one knows what I'm talking about. It's about a bunch of mice, and they live in a cinder block, and they find out that the human in the area is bulldozing it, and they have to get all the mice to a safe place. And there's a bad guy, there's a good guy, there's a good mouse, and it's so good. And then they have to get in the house, and they have to deal with the cat in the house, and they have to deal with the humans. It's such a great story.
Oh, I want to see.
Yeah, you have to. That's such a good one. And then another one that's more like religious, I would say, but was called Small One, and it was about like the donkey that had to make the trek in through Bethlehem. Maybe I don't even remember, because to me it wasn't about religion, right? To me when I was little, but I remember different parts. And it was about this little donkey that was the runt of the group, and he had a hard time making the trek. And anyways, those were great movies.
I love it. Yeah. I love that they have values. A lot of these good movies have values in them that stick with kids. So that's really cool to hear.
And I only mention it too because I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm sure you do not know this, but
I didn't know that. Okay.
My parents were New Yorkers, and they moved there, and they actually started cable television in Alaska, in Anchorage. So
Wow.
when I was younger, I grew up, kind of in the office. I would go there all the time, and my dad got the rights to the satellite dish or whatever. And all of a sudden, they named it Visions, and they had, this cable company. And my mother was an actress in New York, and so she did all the on-air stuff. So she did the intros to the movie. She was also the head of programming. They had a lot of different hats at the time, and so
Wow.
she would pick the movie that was going to go on. She'd go to the wall that had all the movies, but they were betas, and she'd put them in
Yeah.
the thing, and it would come out on TV. And I thought it was incredible. And so we always had the beta of those two movies I just told you about. And as a kid, I thought they were cool. So
Oh,
anyway,
so you actually had the original tracks. Yeah, who knew? I don't know either one. I definitely want to see the one with the mice. That one sounds really
it's so
cool.
good. It's so good. I
Yeah,
would watch it
yeah,
again.
yeah.
You talked about the time frame that's good for kids to watch. And I'm curious because there's a lot of kids that even at a young age will tend obviously get on social media now and they're into TikTok and all these things. How do you steer your kid for more of an educational, something to watch that's more educational? Like what's a good tip to get them to, be focusing on things or shows that they should be watching that could entertain them a little more than watching people and things on TikTok?
Yeah, no, I understand the power of TikTok and Instagram, and
Mhm.
they can be very captivating. I think with Kidstream, one nice thing is if you can get them in and give them a sample of some of these shows, they'll be amazed. We show them, a lot of these kids don't know these shows, and they're allowed to. You can let them free in here. We don't have any algorithms that push a child to pick this video to here or bait. We don't track them or anything like that. So some children, some girls may like Coyote Peterson, and someone might have thought that was a boys show, but we don't have any of that. You pick what you like. And
But
I
that's
think
actually important what you're saying, because you could give the kids the freedom to choose some of these shows as opposed to standing over them and saying, we're going to watch this next and let me scroll
right,
through this because you can't see this. So that must make
exactly.
it a great environment
It
for them.
is. You can relax a little bit. But we also really want to be sure, because we know parents are in the background or grandparents or caregivers. We want to have everything that's on that air
Mm.
to be something that they would approve of or have in the background. So we don't have any of these kind of fast-paced kind of shows that are some of the shows you find on are made to try to attract kids and keep them almost addicted to watching them, and they keep coming and keep coming, and we don't promote that at all. We
Yeah.
promote much more. We're happy if a child watches a show for 10 minutes and that's it, and then they're done. If you're making money off of clicks or ads on for kids, then you're trying to drag them in as many as you can, because that's how they're for adults, advertising is great. I find it to be one of the highest art forms. They make you laugh in 30 seconds. But for young children, they have a hard time distinguishing between reality and ads. So we have
Sure.
just made a decision to just feel safe and don't have any of that on Kidstream. So.
Yeah. I had a different kind of question for you just because you are such a TV industry expert. What are your thoughts on the stigma of, maybe it's not a stigma, but these kids that are growing up in TV, like that were on the Mickey Mouse Club, and kids that have been related to Disney stuff. You had Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes,
Mm.
Demi Lovato, Miley Cyrus, Bella Thorne, all turning out a certain way and finding their way maybe eventually, but they've hit some hard roads. Like, do you have a thought on what it's like to have these kids thrown into these shows at such an early age?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I feel for them, when they were thrown into stardom at such a young age. I even think of Britney at 15 or 16 and what she had to go through. The one experience I have with that, we had a really good experience. We had the star of Lazy Town was a young girl. She was 14 at the time, became a very big star. But one thing that really helped was her mother was on set with us all the
Mm.
time, and she was a really good student too. She really was. Um, and Juliana and Morielis, her name is, and she went on to be went to college, and I haven't kept in touch with her, but she did a really good job handling that. But I do feel for those young ones that get thrown into stardom and how much it must impact their lives. You hear about them. I know Natalie Portman. I remember when she decided to go back to college and kind of left the stardom and I think she went to Yale or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But so, I mean, there are those that do it well. But I do feel bad for them, the ones that don't, because it does, seem to affect them, must, with that superstardom as a young one.
Yeah, and I think it must be hard too once you've experienced that stardom, just go back to being a normal kid, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to find your purpose probably after that. So I personally think that that's where a lot of the struggle comes. It doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with the, who they're working for, and sometimes it does, but, I think the networks must have to do a good job of protecting the kids, making sure they still study and have some
They
sort of
do.
yeah.
They really do. There's rules about how many hours they can work. If they're a certain age, they have to have the parent on set with them, and so there is a lot of good protections out there for them. But I think
Right.
it's when they hit superstardom that there's no rule. There's no rules for that. It's hard to. It must be hard for them. They
Yeah.
can't go into the shopping malls by themselves without being recognized and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. My last question for you would be about the future of kids programming. What do you see? What should we look for?
Um, well, like I said, I think, there's some amazing kids producers out there, and the business is vibrant. And I would open your eyes, just like you saw the shows on Netflix from different countries. That's one thing we do. We bring some amazing shows from different markets into the US. So I would keep my eyes open for that. Um, the animation is all really good. It's funny, some things old come back again. Like right now, there's a lot of stop motion animation, and
Mhm.
we're working on a new show. We're bringing a show into the channel. We'll be the only ones that have it this year, coming, called The Sound Collector, and it's very landmark in a couple ways. The main character is hearing impaired,
Hmm.
which is really cool, and it's a beautifully shot show. We have a very famous narrator, Keira Knightley, is doing the narration on this one,
Oh,
and
wow.
it comes out of she has young kids, and I haven't met her, but I've seen some of the promos she's done for the series. She's really got into this series, and we also have the animation company called McKinnon and Saunders, did all the models and all the stop frame models, which are amazing. And they were the same ones that did the Pinocchio movie that won the Academy Award last year. So though that old kind of animation is coming back. We also have some stuff from Aardman, like Shaun the Sheep, that is a little more for older kids, but it's very safe and funny and things like that. So I would
I
say whatever
yeah,
whatever is old is new again.
right.
Yeah.
I'm just curious how this works. Like, do you ever remember like a childhood book you have and realize that was never made into animation, and you're like, oh, that would be a good idea for an original series to commission eventually? I mean, I'm just making this up. I have
No,
no
it's a
idea.
great idea. It's a great, almost every, I would say at least half of the stuff we have came from a book. So
Oh, okay.
it's a great way to start animation. It is from books. You're right.
Is Ferdinand made into something on TV or a series yet? I used to love Ferdinand also.
Boy, you have good. Yeah, I remember Ferdinand, the book, the Spanish one. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
He like
yeah,
lived under a tree or something. I don't know.
yeah.
And he
That's
didn't
interesting.
want to participate in the fights or whatever. I can't really remember.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's a good one. I have a whole list
Yeah, it
here.
is a good. I'll make a note of that one. I'll give you credit on that if we ever do that one. I like that
Okay.
as a movie. There might be something on that one,
Okay.
over in Europe, but that is a good idea for a movie.
And then I have one more. I love, do you remember Mrs. Pigglewiggle?
That sounds really familiar. Why do I know
Okay,
that?
so here's another one. I'm sorry, everybody that's listening. That's like, shut
No,
up
no,
already.
these are great.
Mrs.
These are great.
Pigglewiggle was so good. She was an old bat of a woman. She was like a babysitter. And so if parents had a problem with their kid, and it was called like the no good, very bad day kid, the kid who always came home and always had a very bad day, the parents would call Mrs. Pigglewiggle, and she would come in and teach them how to change their attitude. Or if it was a kid who didn't like to clean their room, or a kid who didn't like to go to sleep, they would call Mrs. Pigglewiggle, and the kids would be so horrified that she had to come in, but she would completely, whatever she did, it was a lesson on how to change their
Oh,
attitude or their
nice.
behavior. And there was a whole series. And when I was younger and I would visit my grandmother, she would read me the stories from Mrs. Pigglewiggle. And, there's like 20 chapters in every book. And it always was something that could resonate with you as a kid. And I'm talking, when I was 5, 6, 7. So
important years. Yeah. You
yeah.
develop a lot of your habits by the time you're 7, a lot of the things. So it's great your grandmother read those to that.
Okay. So that goes on your list also.
Okay. That's another one. Boy, that sounds like one that the parents would love if we could give them that tool. A lot of the things we have in are tools for parents. I mean, we have a show that we're the only ones that have it right now called Ollie, the Boy Who Became What He Ate. And him and his little sister go on these adventures. And every adventure is like about a blueberry or an avocado. And so they weave food into the show. So you end up getting these kids much more familiar with vegetables and all the positive things about vegetables and fruits.
Right. Oh, I love that. But also, with one of the lessons I remember was a kid in the book, Mrs. Pigglewiggle, who wouldn't say please or thank you. And so I can imagine a parent sitting your kid down and being like, I have an episode for you, and the kid watching.
See what Mrs. Pigglewiggle said? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
so that kind of stuff is fun, whatever. But all right, where could parents find your streaming network right now?
Well, Kidstream is available a number of places. You can see them all on our website, which is kidstream.tv. So you can go on there and see all the places. But just to know, if you're an Amazon customer, which a lot of people in the US are, we're an Amazon Prime Video channel, which is a great place to get us. Perfect. If you get your cable or internet from Cox or Comcast, you can speak right into the remote and say Kidstream, and it'll come up. You can also find us on the App Store. Roku has us, so both the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. And you can get us directly from kidstream.tv, in which you can use those on smart TVs or your, a lot of our audience watches on tablets or and things like that too. So there's a number of places you can get us now. But if you want to check us out, you can see us on the web and see what kind of shows we have. And they usually have a 7-day free trial. Even it's $4.99 a month is what we charge.
Absolutely,
and again, no commercials. Thank you. Really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, I think it's so fantastic. I'm bummed my daughter's 11, but we might have to check it out anyways because she still loves all that stuff. All right. Well, Dean, thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck. I really loved having this conversation. I can't wait to see where things go for you.
Oh, I really appreciate being here, Rachel, and thanks to your audience too. Appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Yucatel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info_misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.